Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, asarimhotep, with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And today is Kujichagulia, Tuesday, August the 6th, 2024. And today we are going to try to get at the bottom of the meaning of the name of Anpu, better known as Anubis in terms of the Greek rendering of the ancient Egyptian deity. So this is going to be a classroom session, so make sure that you have your notes, your notepad and pen, I should say, ready, or if you type it on your computer, and we are going to get it in. So all that and more when we return in just a moment. And we are back. I just want to say thank you for catching this live. I know it's early in other parts of the United States, especially on the West Coast, where they are 3 hours behind us on the East. But I wanted to do this show a little bit early, and you have time to review it later on your own time. So we are going to get started. So again, today we are talking about the how should I say, the etymology of not the place. Of course, that is the name of the my latest book in terms of, let me just find it here. Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1, Towards a Meaning of the Place Named Kemet. But we're not talking about Kemet today. We are talking about um, the etymology of Anubis or Anpu. And how this conversation came about was a, a, a topic that was started on a Facebook group by one of our good brothers, from the continent of Africa, where he was proposing a vocalization for the name Anpu, better known as Anubis, to the layperson. And I had some concerns with the method of the vocalization and the argument for its cognate in other African languages. And so, but his proposal is not a new proposal. It has been proposed earlier before, and I will get into that in a moment. So make sure that you like and thumb up the video and that you share it with your peoples. And so I just want to say peace and blessings to Sister Mika, and peace and blessings to Brother Lamar Pope, who have made themselves known in the chat this morning. And so let me get rid of that. I am going to share my screen, and I actually need to, I should have done this earlier. Got on my phone so I can view the chat while I'm sharing, because while I'm sharing, I cannot view the chat. So I'm going to put my phone on the, how should I say, the page. Then I'm going to view what I can from the phone. So let me just go into, I'm going to scroll up here. So I should be live, and boom, and there we go. So now I can check out the the chat while we are doing the lesson. Alrighty. So let me get started. So I'm just going to share my screen as usual. Let's do the entire screen. Let's make that full screen. And why isn't it full screen? Let me exit that. See, full screen isn't as full screen as it used to be, but that's neither here nor there. So let's do this. So slideshow from the beginning. So I'll wait a few seconds to see it on YouTube, and there we go. Alrighty, so now I can get started. So toward an etymology of the god Anpu, and that's how we transliterate it in, I guess, modern Egyptology, but the Greeks pronounce the name as Anubis, right? So, and of course, this show is sponsored by our Patreon members. So make sure that you join the Patreon and help keep the channel going. And of course, I mentioned earlier my latest book, Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1, Towards a Meaning of the Place Named Kemet. So you could pick that up on my website on asarimhotep.com. or you can go to Amazon.com and purchase the book, right? So, you know, let's first get started on understanding exactly who Anubis is, right? And so, what I'm gathering here is from the text a comprehensive list of gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt. And you can pretty much just kind of find this information everywhere. And so on the left-hand side, what you see is a representation of Anpu or Anubis. And again, there's a transliteration right under his feet. But this is how you spell out the name in hieroglyphs. So the E, N, P, W, right? So, and then this is the classifier at the end, which is just a depiction of Anpu himself, right? So this is of course a human figure with um, a a jackal mask. So this is supposed to be a jackal, and we'll get more into that in just a second. And so it says Anubis, ancient Greeks. This is how you write it in Greek. Is the Greek name for the jackal-headed god associated with mummification and the afterlife in ancient Egyptian religion. He is the son of Nephthys and Set, according to the Egyptian mythology. He was actually a son of Ra in the beginning. So this is a later rendition or association in Egyptian history. According to the Akkadian transcription in the Amarna letters, Anubis's name was vocalized in Egyptian as Anapa. So at least by the New Kingdom period, what we're calling Anpu or Anubis was actually pronounced Anapa. So that should tell you in terms of vocalizing how the name was pronounced. So we have, at least in the New Kingdom, a representation of the name coming from the Akkadian and Amarna letters, right? And so I'll skip the rest of that, but well, I guess this is important too. So the oldest known mention of Anubis is in the Old Kingdom pyramid text, where he is associated with the burial of the pharaoh. At this time, Anubis was the most important god of the dead, but he was replaced during the Middle Kingdom by Osiris. So we know that later on, first Osiris comes in around the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. So prior to Osiris coming into the mix, it was Anubis that was the head or the king of the underworld and having to do with death and the like. So that those characteristics were transferred to Osiris in a later period, and which is why you see Anubis in terms of blackface, right? Like the black dog. So you'll see Osiris later being depicted as all black, because the blackness has to deal with, in this instance, dealing with death in the underworld, right? Because first and foremost, jackals are not all black. And we'll see a couple photos later on. So the reason why he's depicted in blackface, but notice the body here is not all black, but he's depicted in a black because it's association with the ground, the underworld, right? So let's keep it moving. So here's Anpu again, or Anapa. We'll just say Anapa throughout interchangeably. So he's holding the Ankh symbol to the nose of Amenhotep II. And so this is self-explanatory. And here is Anapa later on. So now the whole body is pitch black, as you can see, to match the face. But this is during the Greco-Roman period, right, that you see. So, he lasted all the way up until then. And so as we noted that, Anpu is a jackal-headed deity. So this is, a depiction of a jackal. So again, jackals are not all black. That is a symbolic representation in ancient Egyptian lore. So, but jackals are, and this is from Wiki, jackals are canids, canines native to Africa and Eurasia. While the word jackal has historically been used for many canines of the subtribe Canina, in modern use it most commonly refers to three species: the closely related black-backed jackal, that's what you see here, and a side-striped jackal, which you see right here, right, of sub-Saharan Africa, and the golden jackal of South Central Europe and Asia. The African golden wolf was also formerly considered a jackal. While they do not form a monophyletic clade, all jackals are opportunistic omnivores, predators of small to medium-sized animals and proficient scavengers. Right? Because as you can see, these are not big dogs. Right? These are not big canines. Like this, these jackals are related to the wolf. However, they're not wolf size. Right? They almost like jackals almost look like basically foxes. Like if you ever seen a fox in real life, right? That so they're small canines, right? That's why they can only hunt small to medium sized animals, right? Um, which includes birds, reptiles, and the like. So, but these are two representations of a jackal. So, in the conversation on Facebook, the argument was that the word anpu or anapa was cognate with Bantu words for dog, which is imbwa, which we'll see a little later on. And so I posed a challenge to that argument because in the ancient Egyptian dictionaries and in the primary text, the word anpu is never used to mean dog or jackal. So when you're looking up words for dog or jackal in the dictionaries, these are the words that come up. So you see this sereb, jackal, Winesh, jackal, wolf, Ishseheb, jackal, and then the rest are just words for dog. So Yawa, dog, Bethin, dog, hound, Chesim, dog, Bechin, dog, howl, bay, and Ish or Yish, dog. Right. So the idea here is that if the word jackal meant dog, then it would be used as such in the language, right? And since the word anpu is not used to mean jackal or dog, this raised a red flag for me because of my experience examining African languages. And with African languages, you'll have many words for the same object, or I should say phenomenon, because each word may be a descriptor of the object or phenomenon, or it may relate to the function of that object or phenomenon, right? So it is not, when we're doing translation work from one language to another, you always have to be careful in terms of putting weight on certain translations. Because, for example, when you think of the word dog in English, what does dog mean? How do we know that a word in another language translated as dog? We know what the word dog refers to, in terms of the phenomena or object, but can you translate a word from another language as dog, even though they may refer to the same thing? Because the name for the object or phenomena in one language may be referring to something else, for which for example, a dog is simply a representation of, and is not necessarily the word for what we would say in English, dog. And so, when you study semantics and semiology or symbiology and the like, these are the kinds of questions that are raised. So we never, when we're doing comparative work, we never go our first mind. Just because something seems reasonable at first sight on it and say that's it. All etymology, all comparative work require intensive work and critical analysis. And so we don't want to slack, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And just like in computer science, trash in, trash out. And so we always want to be cognizant of these things, right? So here are the main hieroglyphs on poop. So you have the E15 glyph, which you right here, the E16, which is just a jackal. So the first one is a jackal laying down on its stomach. And E16 is the jackal laying on its stomach on top of a shrine, right? And then you have Anpu as a seated man, the jackal mask, which is C6, and then you have C25, Anpu, kind of like that figure that we saw earlier, standing up holding the wasp scepter. So notice these. So each of these hieroglyphs are pronunciation, right, or a word. So E15 can mean Anpu, but it can also mean Hiri Seshetu. And what does Hiri Seshetu mean? It is kind of like the head, the leader of secrets. It's a priestly title, right? So Seshet means secrets, right? And so that those same pronunciations go for both E15 and E16. Anpu is for C6, is just, Anapa or Anpu. But C25 is also Anpu, but also Wisser. And Wisser is the word for power. So notice this is the was. Was also means power, but that's a different variation of the word Wisser. The Wisser means power, right? So we always have to keep this in mind when we're kind of analyzing. So for me, when I'm researching this question, I want to know, okay, well, what do the dictionaries say that the words mean? And then how is these words used in actual Egyptian sentences? And then what is the overall framework of the deity itself? Because that plays a role and a part in finding the etymology of the word, besides the historical comparative aspect of it. So, but notice as well that the words for Anpu is the jackal lying on its stomach, or in terms of is fully in canine form. When it's in human form, it's either sitting down on its behind or it's standing up. But we're just focused right now on just the full canine form of Anapa, right? So notice that the actual words for jackal in the language, Zereb, Sarab, or Sab, as some would say, and Wanesh, The jackal is standing up, and notice the difference in the tails, right? Let's go. So this is the live representation. These, I think these are still paintings. These are drawings. But notice the tail of the jackal. And so here's the jackal, but notice the words for dog. It doesn't use the jackal hieroglyph. And notice the tail. So this is the I believe this is kind of like the Benji dog. It's either this one or this one. There, you can tell the Benji dogs by their tails. So notice how this tail in this word curls here, and then this one kind of curves, but it has this little kind of puff at the end in this word Bethin dog that you can see in Bechin and Ish over here. So this the Saheb and Chisim, at least for the ones that I have here, the classifier is the one used for all beast or whatnot. So you don't really get an idea here, but so this is something else that I noticed when I was first looking at it. And I'm like, well, why is Anpu laying down, but and Anpu is never used for the word for jackal and the word for dog. But when you do find the words for jackal and dog, first of all, the representations have the canines always standing up. And secondly, the word the hieroglyph for jackal is not used for the words for dog. So the ancient Egyptians understood them as two different things. And you clearly see this in the hieroglyphs itself, right? So this is going to become very important later, right? So here's variations of the word for dog in Bantu that were being compared in the Facebook group. Now, this was, I've used this representation, I've used this equation before in my work. So, this is not only a critique on our good brother Obama, who started the post in the group, or Jean-Claude Mboli, or Obinga. So in Obinga's 1985 book, this is where you can find these words here. We've all, in my personal opinion, made that mistake of equating Anpu with Imbwa, meaning dog, in the Bantu languages. But that is so again, I'm critiquing myself as well because I made this mistake. And this is the down, like we like to critique uh Greenberg for his mass comparison and lookalikes. But if you are making the equation of Mbwa to Anpu, then you are doing a lookalike, which is why it's required for you to do a series of comparisons before making that equation, that assumption, right? So, but I noticed here for example, in the Shona language, we have mga, 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 right? And ngwa. So this tells me that either the G became W or the G was dropped, in these words here, right? So the first argument I want to believe was first proposed by Obinga in 1985 is that Anpu equals Bantu Mbwa, and I color coded this so you can see where the what is being matched in terms of the phonemes, right? So, hold on. Okay, so yeah, so I say, what about Shona Mga or ngwa, right? And because this G would factor in when we're talking about the pronunciation here. So keep in mind that the group we are in is currently concerned with vocalizing the ancient Egyptian language. And Jean-Claude Mboli has published a book that came out this year proposing some vocalizations for ancient Egyptian words. And so that's the greater context for the post in the group, right? So but I say note, however, that Egyptian never uses anpu to mean dog or jackal in the language, and that cognates must stand on two legs, therefore forming meaning. So before we can start arguing for cognates in related languages, there has to be a part of the equation that matches in terms of the form of the word based on regular sound meaning correspondences, and then of course the meaning. So how can you equate anpu to mean dog when the ancient Egyptians themselves never used anpu to mean dog or even jackal, even though it is the jackal that is being represented by the consonants in sequence? So while it's convenient for us to assume that anpu means jackal, anpu could also just be a title for which the jackal is a common representation of that title. And so this is going to become very important because this word anpu, and I have to verify this in other sources because I've only seen it, but I haven't done a deep dive on this just yet. But in Mark Vigas's dictionary, he has anpu meaning secrets. And I want to know where he got the word anpu secrets from in that dictionary to see if there's another dictionary or two that has that equation and from what time period. Because if anpu means secrets in the ancient Egyptian language, it would also explain its use in this other title here. We have Hiri Sashetu, the chief or the head of secrets, because there's also a priest title called Wet Ampu, right? And these things are important. So this is why you can't go with your first mind. You have to do a deep dive. So this is an ongoing investigation that we're having right here, but we will continue, right? So in my opinion, I propose a cognate for Mbwa because the Rwanda and the Shona language, especially since these are East African, Southeast African languages, usually these languages hold the older forms of Bantu words, right? So this tells me that it's really MBG as the core consonants of this word here. And if so, then I propose that for example, Shona Mga, that it is really Bahin, meaning howl of a dog, bellow, bay, revile, and Behin dog. And what I propose is that this word Befin with the same meanings is also a variant. So now I'm going to have to do some investigation to see if there's an internal correspondences between the dotted H in Egyptian and F. And then we try to explain the sound change between these particular forms here, right? But I'm arguing here that the B and dotted H is the BG in Imga, and that the N is equivalent to the M. And so you should know that N becomes M in front of the voice bilabial plosive, which is B right here, right? So whatever branch that Egyptian belongs to, for which these words belong, what is prefixed in these Bantu languages is suffixed in Egyptian, as we can see here. So this is my proposal, and that's why I put here for future research that I can confirm this. So right now, this is just a hypothesis that has to go through the scrutinizing process, right? So when doing this work, we have to really kind of understand how ancient Egyptian words are formed in the language. And, there's been many proposals, for those who are Semitic leaning, they want to argue that, Egyptian is just like the Semitic languages, and that, they're kind of built from these triliteral roots, or these triconsonantal roots, I should say. And the, I should say there's another proposal that is actually the same. So like Jean-Claude Mboli's in his latest book, he's arguing basically the same, but for Negro Egyptian. So what he's arguing is that for post-classic Negro Egyptian, that the primary roots were triconsonantal or trisyllabic, and that they were reduced in a lot of the languages to biconsonantal roots, or consonant vowel, or consonant vowel consonant, for those languages that have that form. Now, is many years that I've been studying the ancient Egyptian language, it is my argument that both of those proposals are wrong, and that Egyptian is built off of monosyllabic roots, consonant vowel monosyllabic roots. And I don't have time to go through the dozens upon dozens of examples, but I just wanted to give one, right? So you have, for example, in Egyptian, the monosyllabic consonant vowel root ba, or let's just say ba, because we don't know what vowel it was, but let's say ba. Ba meaning evil, abomination, or similar. It was also used in later times, be, as a name for Seth. So we know that in Egyptian lore, Seth was, for the most part, even though he was used in or represented as kind of good or neutral in a lot of ancient Egyptian mythology, for the most part, Seth represented that which was an abomination, evil, and alike. And so this word meaning evil, abomination, or similar was used as a name for Seth. So this is an example of what I mean. So like, for example, let's say that, we know that Seth, for those of you who are familiar with the ancient Egyptian language and the hieroglyphs, you know that Set is represented by this weird looking animal, which they have not been able to find and may have gone extinct in Africa or the Middle East, wherever that animal was located. But if I was to show the animal, the Seth animal, and then argue that it was pronounced Bay, meaning that was the name for the Seth animal, I'll be wrong. The Seth animal just represents Seth, and if I use that as a determinative or something like that for Bay, I'm saying that because of the mythology, Seth represents evil and an abomination. And it's this root, this B root here that is at the root for the word bin, meaning being bad, being angry, to be bad, to be wicked. That it has two more consonants that is suffixed to this root. Then in this version, you have the B root that is prefixed by two consonants, sajet, meaning damage or mischief and evil, right? All the same semantic field, but is built off of consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, monosyllabic roots. So it's a single root, and then grammatical morphemes are added to the to the root, right? And this is explicitly seen, so that same root, the, meaning evil and an abomination, is prefixed by this symbol here, which is, this is supposed to represent the voice pharyngeal fricative. Again, you know, a lot of Egyptologists are Semitic centric. So, you know, they're arguing that Egyptian sounds more like Semitic languages when Egyptian is not closely related to Semitic at all. But that's another argument for another day. But you can see that when this prefix is added, now it's verbalized to, so this is a noun, evil, abomination, or similar. And now this makes it into a verb, too dirty, to pollute. And then when the W is suffixed, is now renominalized to impurity, taint, or tainted, right? When the J is prefixed to this now becoming a root, it means to blacken, or some vowel must have changed here. Now it means coal black. And now when the T is suffixed to these roots, it now means charcoal. You can see it in this phrase, jahabit wahim, charcoal for burning, right? But you can see the progression here. So this notion of an abomination, right, applies to now becoming dirty or polluted. With each new grapheme, with each new morpheme, you know, we get a different word, but the semantics expands as well with these grammatical morphemes. So if we're doing comparative work, we always go back and start with comparing the roots. And then we see what languages also have the same morphology. If we find so-called matches in language B with Egyptian, and it has a word that looks like it matches for here, but it doesn't have the same grammatical morphemes, we can assume that either that word in language B is a chance lookalike, or it is in fact a borrowing, either from ancient Egyptian directly or from another language that is either related to ancient Egyptian or that borrowed the same word from ancient Egyptian, and it was now borrowed in language B, right? So now, and this is just to show you how, you know, different dialects will have the same grammatical morpheme, but it's pronounced different, right? And, you know, y'all can come back and pause and see this a little later, right? And this is just to prove that j is a prefix on the root, and y'all can pause and come back to this later. So it's not really important for our discussion. Now, I have to say this because in the discussion that we were having on Facebook, it was being argued that, you know, like anpu is one continuous word, right? And I'm like, you have to go into the language to confirm that it is in fact. You just can't assume and then roll with it. You don't assume anything when you're doing etymological work. You prove all things, right? And again, you have to know how words are constructed in the language. Egyptian words are consonant vowel monosyllabic, and the words are built using other consonant vowel monosyllabic morphemes. So what I'm showing here is that Egyptian P is also a suffix. And so again, going asking the question, is Anpu one continuous string, or can Anpu be broken down into smaller components? If so, by what method can we determine that this is the case? Right? So the reason why this is important is so when our good brother Obama proposed Imba, I'm like, you have to propose other words. You have to show a sequence of non-accidental repeated sound meaning correspondences. Without the repeated sound meaning correspondences, your analysis is incomplete, especially when you have these other homographs in the language. So Anpu or Inep, because it's pronounced Anapa or Anapu in the latter in the New Kingdom, but there's other Ineps in the language. So you have Inep meaning to decay, Inep meaning to lie prone on the stomach. So this is why I was saying it was important to note that Anpu is lying on his stomach. There's a reason why they depicted him this way. Of course, dogs and all kind of other animals sit and lie like this, like lions and stuff like that. But Anpu is, or Inep, is a word meaning to lie on your stomach, right? So how do we know that Anpu isn't named after, a characteristic of this dog always lying on its stomach, right? So let me go back. So there's Anep, meaning papyrus skiff, a Nepu, child, royal child, and Nepwit, which is a goddess in the form of a dog, consort of Anubis, right? So you have this series here, which we have to do a comparison with. So we just can't jump and say that, uh, Anpu means this and that, and we haven't done the analysis, because if a closely related language to Egyptian has Anpu's so-called meaning dog or jackal, then it should have, with the same form, these words and similar, right? So you have to understand that Egyptian, has a number. It's really kind of a suffix centric language primarily. And I want to show here just some examples of P being used as a suffix in the ancient Egyptian language. So we have Nehezi, to wake up, and then you have Nehep, to rise early in the morning. And so the Z is replaced by the P suffix. Nehem meaning to shout, Nehep meaning to mourn. And this is going to become important later on in our discussion here. So remember this word, Nehem, to shout, Nehep meaning to mourn. Then we have Wages, to cut open, to gut fish, etc. And then we have Wagep, to triturate, which means to break up, to cut up, to pulverize, to grind to a powder. And so remember that, grammatical morphemes add a different dimension to a meaning of a particular root. It expands the root in terms of, it increases the semantic field a common root. So hit meaning to become entangled, hetepet meaning bundles of herbs, weded, partial reduplication, to be cooked, and then you have wedepu, a butler or a cook, right? Hanem, to breathe in, to smell, and then you have henep, to breathe, to take in air. It also means to drink in water, right? Harewut, in secret, undercover, and then harep, to hold secret, secret place, hidden mountain, secret concealed. And this actually may be a different rendition of the word anpu, meaning secrets. And so, in future research, I will show that. And then chenim, to bring gifts, and chenit, meaning present offerings, right? So you can see where these p's are suffixed here. It gives a different dimension and gives a different quality to the meaning of the word here, right? So when you read Christopher Ehret's examination of these third consonant roots, or these third consonants in the ancient Egyptian language, he tells you that, or he suggests that the p suffix has these three particular qualities, and to denote the intensive or intensive in particular in its effects on the thing acted upon, or it can extend an action or condition without intensiveness, right? He says the p suffix can note the intensive effects on the thing being acted upon, or it can extend an action or condition without intensiveness, right? So, of course, Christopher Ehret is of the Greenberg school, but that does not mean that he is wrong on everything. So before anybody's, well, it's Christopher Ehret, he's of the Greenberg school. That's not how science works. And so it's in this text, Egyptian and Semito-Hamitic Afroasiatic Studies in Memoriam with Visiture. So he provides examples, and which is why you have to take it serious, right? So now we're going to deal with my first hypothesis. So I made this statement in the Facebook group, and I'm going to repeat it here. So I say, so I showed him what I just showed y'all, right? That, first we have to establish that P can be a suffix. And the reason why this is important is because how do we know that, because they're trying to make the argument that pu is the root and that in are prefixes on a pw root for anpu. So I'm like, well, how do you know that that is the root when in Egyptian we know that p is a known suffix? So you have to go through the steps to establish that in this case for anpu, that p is in fact the root and not a third consonant suffix that we see like in these examples right here, right? So that's why this is important. So now that I've established that p is in fact a suffix in ancient Egyptian, so I go on to the next part of the analysis. So I say, so now we know that R becomes I or J in this instance in many ancient Egyptian words, but they are normally in a second and third consonant position. However, more rarely, it can be done in the C1 or the first consonant position. What this investigation is looking like here is that inepu is a variant of renep et, where R becomes I, and that anpu, the deity, derives from an RN root meaning young. Let's set I don't know what I'm saying here, but I meant to say, let's see a set of some sound correspondences first between Chikam or Egyptian and Chiluba, right? So what I was trying to tell Obama is that you have to show a series of sound meaning correspondences first. So let's start off with RN, the consonant sequence RN in Egyptian, right? So in this first one, Ren meaning name becomes the Ina, name. And so the R is dropped in Chiluba in the first consonant position. Is D is a prefix. So this is why we say the Ina, name, in Chiluba. We have rin, young one, which is ana, young, in Chiluba. Renin, to rejoice, to praise. This is a partial reduplication. So it's really rin, to rejoice, to praise, which is ana, commend, praise, celebrate, exalt. Anina, admire, wonder at, speak with admiration of. And then renin again, to embrace, to caress. Anya, embrace, hug, kiss, securely fasten, right? Which I guess is, there's a homonym in the language, meaning to securely fasten, to tie down, right? And so as we can see here, there's a regular correspondence where ancient Egyptian R disappears in the first consonant position in Chiluba, and in some instances, it makes the first vowel long. So in linguistics, we call this propensatory lengthening, right? So when a consonant is dropped, you can often tell that a consonant was dropped because now the vowels become long. The short vowel becomes long. And we see that in these final two examples here. But we're going to see that this is a central characteristic, right? So, but for example, in the Yoruba language, where Middle Egyptian R in the first consonant position, it corresponds to Yoruba R in the first consonant position, right? And I should have put the meaning. So this arted in, to embrace, to caress, should be right here, to embrace and to caress, which shows the Yoruba rune, to touch, right? And so this is, a series that I'm just showing here. So you can see that some of these words here are still, it's still in the Yoruba languages have the first consonant intact. Whereas in the other language, in Chiluba, it is dropped. Right. So the same thing. So you see this propensatory lengthening here when the first consonant is dropped. For the RN sequence, the same thing happens for the IN sequence or the JN sequence. So this ini, to buy, becomes in Chiluba ula, to buy. Yin, yin, in, to cut up. And then in knife becomes ke'ela, mu'ela, axe, sword, cutlass, right? Knife. Right, so you can see there's two different prefixes here. So we know that the root is just ella. In, meaning it strengthens the negation after there's another word, bin, meaning to negate. And we have negation. So inna, not, negation in Chiluba. In, if. Ne, ni, if. But we can see here that it's not preceded by a vowel. So that whole entire segment is dropped in Chiluba for this word. Then we have any, to tarry, to delay, to linger. Sini, meaning to wait, becomes in Chiluba ala, to wait for a passenger, be on the lookout. Alama, to wait, watch, be on the lookout. Adila, watch, spy, wait. And it should be noted that when I follows L, L becomes D. So that's why it's Adila instead of Alila, right? And even when the J becomes W, we see the same thing. So when in, to exist, to become, in, not, to be. So you can see that the loss of the first consonant lengthens the first vowels. So this is a sound law that we're observing here. Same thing with dini, to soak. Remember that D's and R's and L's interchange in world languages, and they do in Egyptian, and they do even in Bantu. And matter of fact, this L was originally a D, that's reconstructed for Proto-Bantu, as they would say. But so we got dini, to soak, inna, to soak, to immerse in liquid. And in Egyptian, the D and the so-called voice pharyngeal fricative, or at least that's the sign for it. That's not really the sound in ancient Egyptian, but that's neither here nor there. These two interchange also with the Z sound. And so we have hen, to paint, inna, to paint, to draw. Inet, fingernail, toenail, claw. Wala, jiala, nail, claw. Mala in the plural. Kiala, chiala, thumb. Right? So you're seeing these sound laws in place. So we're establishing this because we want to know if there's a cognate for Anpu in Chiluba, we know what kind of form is going to have because of the sound laws that we are establishing here, right? And so the J in Egyptian, well, the I in Egyptian also corresponds to L in Chiluba. So we can see this word in, today, which becomes Lilu, Lilu, today. Yin, to say. Lola, to rant, to exaggerate things. Londa, to say, to narrate, to tell. Right? And another sound change law in Chiluba is when L is preceded by an N also becomes D. So this is really just a variant of this, what you see here, except the second consonant is nasalized. So now it becomes Nd instead of Lola. It's Londa, right? And you can see in Alula, to say, to explain in detail. So in this one, so notice that when, with the exception of this, because they have these two long E's, but in most of the other words, you're going to see that when the root is not preceded by a vowel, you know, or how should I say, when you can tell the difference in terms of these double forms here, because it's a consonant vowel, whereas in this version here it's a vowel consonant. So we know that is alu is the root, and this other la here is not a is not a doubling like we see here, but is in fact a suffix on this root. But yin, verily, certainly, lela or lelelela, truth, authentic, or ine. So we're seeing the same ine and ki ine, verity, ine neki, authentic, pure, genuine, true. Indeed, in or buena, buena, right? And the same thing that we see here with because the J and the W interchange in Egyptian. So when you see winenet, indeed, we see the same thing here, right? And DN, to wander, to traverse is la la, la la la, la la la. So you can see it's even reduplicated here. So we know that the D and the N, is corresponds to LL in Chiluba, right? So we're establishing sound laws, and I know this may seem kind of boring, but this is all necessary to get to the root. So we can see that same consonant sequence, the two L's that correspond to IN in Egyptian, also corresponds to RN, as we see here. So renin, to caress, to look at. Lela, give birth, engender, cause. Home, adopt, to raise. So to raise here. Renin, bread, meaning to have sex. And then Reninette, wet nurse, wardress, and Chiluba as Lolo, my mother. Muledi, parrot, mother, father. Reninin, wealth, fortune, luck. I mean, these are partial reduplications. Layla, to be abundant, to abound, to overflow. Reninet, wit, titet, a garment or a gown. And then we have in Chiluba, Chilulu, fabric, loincloth, clothing. So these are all regular. So you can see that I'm establishing this. So I'm establishing the form. So it's no surprise here that when I go inep, to be laid down, to lie down on the stomach, we have in Chiluba Allah, to lie down or spread. Adija, spread, extend. Adidika, lay someone on their back. So where in Egyptian is to lay down on your stomach, in Chiluba is to lay someone on their back, right? And then we have inep, irep, to decay, which is in Chiluba una kaja, to deteriorate, spoil, become soil, damage, deteriorate, spoil, soil. Kuanuala, to deteriorate, right? And then we have inik, to embrace, to collect. Anya, embrace, hug, kiss, securely fasten, as we saw earlier. And so notice that renin, to embrace, to caress. So I'm showing you and proving to you that R in Egyptian becomes I. So that's why in Chiluba, both RN and IN correspond to lel, lel. That we see here. And we see with the loss of the first L or R, it lengthens the first vowel in these examples here. So this is how historical comparative linguistics is done. These are the sound laws that you have to establish first, right? So what we're trying to show is that the P is in fact a suffix on the root and not the root itself, that IN is the root, right? So we have renin, to embrace, and then when inik, to embrace, to collect, and neh, surround, enclose, embrace, rim, and ineb, to surround with walls, wall enclosure. So we have the same root, yin or rin, that is suffixed by a third consonant, and each different suffix provides a different expansion of meaning, right? And so we have Renenwut, lunar month, feast, harvest festival, a goddess of harvest, which her name is Renenutet, right? So this is, Egyptology speak, but it's here and there. And so it should be known that Anepu is not only a deity, but like Renenutet, I should say, is also in association with a particular festival. So this is important. And it's also in the Put, a female variant of Anput, right? So this may become important. So we have Renin, wealth, fortune, luck. Ren P, to flourish. So we can see from this notion of RN, once you add the P suffix, it becomes to flourish, right? Ren meaning young one of animals. Anepu, prince, royal child. Renep, lad, youth. So you can see, and then the R is either dropped or it assimilates to the N. And so you have NN, infant, son, youngster. And remember, there's an interchange between R and D, or internal correspondence. So we have din, to cut off heads, kill someone. Then yin, to cut up. And then in, knife. Dini, restrain someone. Dini, to dam water, to construct a dam, to hold back. Yiniti, to repel, to restrain, to hinder, to linger. Any, to tarry, to delay, to linger. So any, to wait. So I'm establishing here that RN and DN, and even this variant here in also corresponds to IN in this half. So it's a number of sound changes that is going on here. And let's see if there's any. I don't see any questions or anything in the chat, so I'm gonna keep going. So my first hypothesis is that Anpu Because remember that we said that the jackal is a small animal, and the it looks like a mini version of a larger animal, right? And so this is why I suggested that inep or inepu or inepwa is simply a word meaning small, right? And so when we have, for example, like let's look again. So we have ren meaning young one of animals. We have reni meaning calf. So we know a calf is a young cow or bull. And then we have reninette, young hippopotamus. So it is, so this wouldn't be a word for calf, um, because it's also a word for a young hippopotamus, but it's when, so now when it's suffixed with P, it means rejuvenation, youthful. And then renep, young bull. And then renep, lad, youth. And then renepu, youthful vigor. And then renepi, to flourish. And matter of fact, the word for year, renpet, derives from this root here, because it's this notion of rejuvenation, to refresh. So renpet refers to, you know, the renewing of the year, the refreshing of the year of time. And so when we look at this word inep, meaning papyrus skiff, a papyrus skiff is a small boat that is usually manned by one person. You can basically argue that this is their word for canoe. But it's also possible that this word inep, because there's a word yin meaning to carry. And so this word for papyrus skiff could, you know, have evolved to mean a boat that carries something on water. So that's possible in that. But definitely this Anepu, prince, royal child, a small royal, a junior, or a subordinate, is based upon this rin, because these are dialect or just different forms of the same word here, right? And then of course we have inep, anapa, and napawa. In this W here is just a the masculine, the singular masculine suffix of agent, right? And but notice this word here, ineb, meaning lynx. A lynx is, and we'll see a little later, is a small feline, right? Not like a small house cat, which is meow in ancient Egyptian. But this, a lynx, again, like a jackal deity, is, it looks like a smaller version, like a midget of a larger species of like bobcat and lion and the like, right? So we can see that this same root here gives, but it's a different sound of, so this is an unvoicing and a voicing of the same bilabial plosive as the suffix. And then we have a nehu or nehwa, a small rodent. So so when I seen all this together, this is what made me hypothesize that, you know, from this notion of young comes this notion of small or little, and that a few animals got its name because of their relative size, like the small rodent, this lynx, and the jackal. And each one of these just have a different suffix on the in root. So that's what it's looking like here, right? And we have confirmation of that possibility via Chiluba. So remember that the RN, meaning young, corresponds to Ana, young, in Chiluba. And it has its own prefixes, Chiana, meaning young, child of disproportionate size, and element. And so this is what I'm thinking that these animals mean here, is that these are their size is disproportionate, to what is known in terms of a large wolf or a large dog, a large cat like a panther, leopard, um, lion, cheetah, etc., or a particular rodent, right? And notice that mwana is mu-ana. That same mu is the w suffix of agent in anpu, right? So this is mu. So if this was in a Bantu language, it will be muapa or munapa in Egyptian, on how you would pronounce this, right? But mwana, child, young, candidate, disciple, apprentice. Because remember that Anpu was also a priest and the keeper of secrets, right? Young animal, small. So not just simply a young animal, it is mwana is used to mean small, subject, subordinate, godson, right? Anything that is kind of junior or small. So when you go back and see, for example, these three words in these animals, it's possible that they are named as such because of their disproportionate size and that they are small, right? So that's the first one. And of course, I also go into the Sumerian language, and so they have a different word for jackal, which is which is just a reduplication of their word meaning dog. So for them, they didn't make a separation between a jackal and a dog, whereas the ancient Egyptians did. So the same word for jackal does not mean dog, and the same word for dog does not mean jackal. But in Sumerian, the word for dog is used for jackal. So they saw them as the same, right? So it's jackal, but notice that it has a second meaning, a cultic person, somebody who's in the priesthood, right? And so this is what I was talking about earlier. So they have, in their language, lil meaning secret knowledge. I just put this here because I just needed to hold it to investigate some other things. But this is where in Vigus, and if you have the 2018 dictionaries on page 416, and Nepu meaning secrets, and so in this case the W will be the plural, right, or the collective, uh, the collective W suffix, right, and so remember that in Egyptian, the hieroglyphs for Anpu also is pronounced Hiri Seshetu, meaning the head or the leader of secrets, right? So this requires some more investigation along this line. So that's something that I'm going to be looking further into, but I just wanted to put that in the conversation for now. And I want, for people to know that when you see in the Sumerian language, it corresponds to mer in Egyptian. And so the M becomes U, and so it becomes W, and then it just blends, becomes U. And so it's a series of sound changes, but you can look at this on your own, so you can come back to this. But I just wanted to put this here. But I also wanted to show. So this is just I took a few of those just so that y'all could see that where the R's in the second consonant position, but the M is dropped in Sumerian for these words here, and it just becomes oo. So it's So it's almost like this, like what we see in Chiluba. So when you see these variants here, right? So but it should be noted that the word so remember that means jackal in Sumerian, but it derives as a reduplication of meaning dog. which corresponds to Proto-Bantu, there's a word for. Okay. So it looks like, I don't know, there was a issue with the sound per se. I think the internet disconnected. So we're going to uh, so hopefully y'all see everything. So what I'm going to do is going to log in on my phone to make sure that the because I'm on Wi-Fi here, and sometimes the so y'all let me know. There we go. Okay, so I do apologize. So let me uh, remove that real quick and then put it back. So okay, so this will guarantee that I still. So I don't know what was the last thing that y'all were able to see. Um, so I am going to kind of start this particular part over. So do you remember what you heard last, Tamika? I'm going to, uh, if you can, or somebody in a chat, if y'all can kind of recap, so I know how far to go back. So just let me know. And I know it's going to be a time delay. So if you are listening in the chat, let me know if y'all remember the exact last thing that I said. And nobody's saying anything. So I'm going to okay. So what I was saying is that this word meaning jackal in Sumerian derives from the word meaning dog in Sumerian. So unlike ancient Egyptian, the words for dog and the words for jackal were not the same in Egyptian, but were the same, or at least a form of it was the same in Sumerian. So this word is a reduplication of the word for dog, and it became the word for jackal. And the word corresponds to mr in Egyptian. And so you can see this here. So having this there so you can understand, or you can come back later for further review. But that meaning dog in Sumerian, corresponds to the reconstruction of Proto-Bantu Budu, meaning jackal. But the word dog, also means lion in Sumerian. So the question I ask is, how does the same word for dog and lion, how are they the same? And there's another language we'll get into later where it's the same thing in Africa. Those same word for dog, or excuse me, the same word for jackal is also the same word for cat. So this is what inspired me to look into this further. And I have a second hypothesis for what is going on with the word for jackal in Egyptian and what its true etymology is. And I think it is my second hypothesis that has greater validity than the first hypothesis, even though the first hypothesis is very strong. And they could both be right, just at different time periods. Uh, you know, so so when looking at the word for dog, or one of the words for dog in the ancient Egyptian language, this word, iwa, right? Or iyawa, if you want to say that. And then it has the same form as this word here, iwawa, meaning wailing or to lament. And we know that W is a variant, or it interchanges with M and B in ancient Egyptian, as well as P, right? So this U is a variant of the word M, meaning moan, wail, to lament. Lament, to wail, right? And remember that ancient Egyptian is a consonant vowel monosyllabic rooted language. So all words are built from a monosyllabic consonant vowel word, right? And so we see the same W in wailing and to lament in the word for the howl of a dog. So we had the same W for the howl of a dog, which is present in the very word for dog. And hold on. Let me see. It's the internet again. Oh, I thought it sounded like I came out, but that may be my second. My bad. So it was definitely my. I don't know what is going on over here with this phone. Anyway, so so I hope y'all see what is happening here. So there's a consonant vowel monosyllabic root that is the word for dog and the word for the howl of the dog. So this gave me my first clue, right? So when I go back into Sumerian, notice the word dog, lion, jackal, and then u, because it's a partial triplication, a lament, right? So to lament, to wail, to moan, they're all the same thing. It's like a crying, a mourning, and the like. So we have the same situation going on in Egyptian that we have going on in Sumerian here. And that's when it became clear to me why the word for dog and the word for lion is the same, because it's not referring to them as objects, as phenomena, distinct phenomena. They share a particular characteristic. And that characteristic is the howling, the wailing, the moan. So if you ever heard a lion, you know, a lion will roar. We all are familiar with a lion's roar. However, lions also make this, it's like a cry and wailing sound, right? And the same thing with a jackal. Jackals make this crying, wailing sound. So this is why the same word for to lament is the same word for dog and the howl of a dog, right? So now let's go back to that word that or these other words for dog in the ancient Egyptian language. So we have behin, dog, befin, dog, hound, which has a counterpart with the same homographs, bay, to yelp, to bark of a dog, and then behinu, to howl of a dog, bellow, bay, revow. So remember what I said, B's, M's, and P's interchange with W. So this is how we know that weh, beh is the root and that the N is a suffix, which is prefixed in Bantu, right? So this is the correlation. So this is why I said that in the beginning of the discussion, if you were here at the beginning, why is you can't just say, you just can't translate or transfer meanings from one language to another without careful attention to what is being referred to. Because in the African languages, they're not describing, for some of these words that are for dogs or jackals or any other kind of animal, they're not describing the animal itself, but describing a function, a characteristic about that animal. And they'll use the same word for other animals that share the same characteristics. So in this instance, these words are for animals that howl, bark, and yelp, right? So this makes sense when you understand this word eneb, meaning a Linux, because we're going to see in just a moment exactly the correlation here. So when we're talking about eneb, a Linux, so sure, a Linux is a small cat or a small feline figure, and Anubis is a small canine figure, but they both have the characteristics of this belting out this wailing, um, moaning, lamentous cry, right? So that's why we have in Egyptian in to say, this is the root here. And remember that these different variations, pen to cry out, to lament, din woot to cry, a shriek, which corresponds to chiluba ila, to make or leave or to come out of oneself, a sound, an idea, a word, or object, to emit, to express. And then ku ina, meaning a roar, right? And so we see variants of this root. We have chila, cry, jila, to cry, to make a sound, a bird sing, and I should have put here as well. Matter of fact, I'm just going to put it because this is important. I'm just going to put also, a neb also means a bird, right? And so this becomes important when you understand, right? So let me move this up just a little bit. So some live PowerPoint changing. So just save that. And so from the current slide, right? So there's an eneb meaning bird. And so just like here is the jila, meaning to cry, to make a sound, a bird sing, an animal scream, or to cry on somebody. And so we have imbila, shout, scream, yell, lubila, call, cry, kujila, any animal cry, to howl, mudidi, he or she that laments or cries, madilu, mourning, lamentation, weeping, didila, express a grievance, right? So this notion of to howl, to scream, to moan, to lament is all being used by the same root, and they're being prefixed by different prefixes, and they stack just like what we see in ancient Egyptian. So what I'm arguing here is that anpu and nepu means the crier, the wailer, the moaner. That's what is being referred to as far as anapa anpu. And that same root refers to a bird's song as well as the cry of a Linux cat, right? With these suffixes denoting either an animal, usually in the case of B, or P, um, this intensive suffix. So whatever the root is, it intensifies that root. So if this is a to say or to cry, to speak, the P suffix intensifies it. And so, of course, with anpu, this is the masculine suffix here, the singular masculine suffix of agent, right? And we are confirmed in this because again, the third consonant is a grammatical morpheme, and so you have this word ined, meaning to be distressed, to be sad, to grieve. In Ned, mourning, grief, sorrow. And so the D is a suffix. So from that same article that I mentioned before, Egyptian verbs with D as a third consonant usually have one of two connotations, either of extended or ongoing action or the stativeness. The latter connotation can give rise as well to intransitive formations, right? So so now you can see why Anpu is associated with death and the dead in the ancient Egyptian lore, right? And then how he became um, associated with all those other characteristics in terms of embalming and and in terms of guiding, because in Africa, wailing pushes the spirit, further into the spirit world. And matter of fact, a good book that I recommend is the late Dr. Malidoma Some's Of Water in the Spirit, right? If you get the book Of Water in the Spirit, as well as his book Ritual, he goes into detail from a Daguerre perspective. So, he's of the Daguerre people. The Daguerre people live in northern Ghana and in Burkina Faso. They're related to the Dogon and the Bambara people, right? So when you understand and you put all of this together, everything begins to make sense now, right? Which is why in the Collagen language, the Kiptuswa means a kind of jackal or wild cat. So just like in Sumerian, the word for jackal is, and the word for dog is also the word for lion. So how is a word for lion or a cat, a wild cat, the same as the word for a jackal? Because they both have the same wailing, moaning, lamentous cry characteristic. And that's what's being connected here by these terms. And it just makes sense because even the very word jackal itself speaks to this, right? So if you go to Wiki and you go to the etymology section of the word jackal, it says the English word for jackal dates back to the 1600 and derives from the French shakal, itself from Turkish sakal, itself from Persian shagal, from cognate with Sanskrit shagala, meaning the howler. So this is what I mean. Why? So that's why the word the words for jackal in ancient Egyptian is not anpu. The word anpu, anapa, does not mean dog or jackal. Um, it is a word meaning to howl. It is a descriptor. It's a title meaning the howler. That's what a jackal is, right? And that's for the most part the end of the presentation. But what I want to do is I want to reshare my screen, and I'm going to share, uh, right? I'm going to share this. So this is, now y'all going to have to forgive me for finding this video because the woman in the video is annoying. And I'm telling you now, she's going to annoy you. But pay attention. So this is an actual jackal. So you see how the jackal looks? It looks like a little fox. It looks like a small fox, right? So, but pay attention to the characteristic of the the jackal. So y'all please tell me if y'all can hear, type in a one if y'all can hear the sound, and type in two if you cannot. And if I see a number of twos, then I'm going to restart it. So I'm going to play right now.
Oh my goodness, just look at you. Oh, look at you. Are you just a good boy? Are you just a good boy? Huh? Are you? Are you just such a good boy? Yeah. Oh man. Oh man. You just a good boy? Are you just a good boy? Huh? Go.
Keep in mind that that's not the jackal that's doing that right now. That's the lady. That's why I said she's going to be annoying. But let's keep going.
Are you talking to Daddy? That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
I'm just going to cut it off right there. Right. So y'all, uh, uh, what's his name? Jehuti says that means shut up mocking me and Jacqueline. Yeah, she's adored. But what I'm going to do now, let me go back to history. So now, wait for this dang commercial break. Right. So remember that there's two variants, and there's actually about 3 or 4 different variants of this word in the Egyptian language. So you have eneb, which is a lynx, and then of course enep, which is the enepu, meaning the jackal, or that's referring to the jackal. So this is what a lynx look like. Again, it's a small cat. It's not a like a house cat. It's not one of them cats, but it's still a small cat in comparison to like a lion or something like that, or a cheetah and a wow. But listen to the lynx, and you'll see a commonality between the lynx and the jackal. Were y'all able to hear that? Why is it still? Um, I'm not sure that y'all even heard that. So let me reshare. Um, I don't know what's going on with this connection today. So it doesn't even look like it was sharing the first time. So I'm going to repeat myself. So it looks like it's sharing now. So this is a links that you see on this on the screen, right? So you're going to hear the commonalities between a lynx and a jackal, right? So I'm just gonna play. So there we go. Yeah, it was sharing for some reason. It wasn't sharing the tab that I wanted, but we're doing it now. So here we go. So hopefully that was made clear. But you can see that these would be very uh, annoying. If you're living next to a lynx and or a jackal, in the wild, right? And that's exactly the point, right? So all of these. Let me reshare my screen just to go back to the presentation. Let me hide that, right? So that the common denominator between all of these, both the lynx and the jackal and the bird, that is this unique cries, right? So when you when you see like, anpu in association with death, remember there's a net meaning to decay. But so this just kind of adds on to the association with the funerary scenes and the like. But so we see this in terms of the death scene, but again, it's the mourning that that is being discussed here. And so these animals are being described by what they do, not who they are, in a sense, not like what they look like per se in this instance. So you can see that even words for dog derive from a word meaning to bark, to wail, to howl, to growl. And so their distinctive voices is how they get their names, right? So this is, so it may even be a fact. I have to see this. I don't think they would though. I'm trying to see if they do all their howling while they're laying on their stomach. I doubt it. But again, the words for jackal are not anpu, right? That's not, so these are the words that refer to the animal itself. But the word anpu refers to the characteristic sound that a jackal makes, and that same sound is present in um, the lynx, that cat that we saw earlier, and the birds in terms of singing, and the like. So that's my interpretation of the word anapa or anpu, is that um, anpu has to deal with mourning, and that's the association with death and how he became associated with the funeral, the underworld, and all that, because of grievances of mournings of death, and that's what his particular cry is discussing here. So the root of anpu is in, or jn, if you want to use the German transliteration, right? That's the root, and the third consonant is a suffix. The w is a suffix, right? So out of the two hypotheses that I propose, it is my argument that the second one is strongest, and that's the one I'm going with for now, right? So, I do appreciate your time, and going on 2 hours now. So, if there are any questions, please let me know. And I do apologize for the technical issues that were happening, but I'm gonna wait a few moments to see if there are any uh, what's the words I'm looking for, questions or comments coming from the stream. So uh, in the meantime, make sure that you in fact that's right. Make sure that you hit the like button and that you share the conversation. And it doesn't look like there's any questions. So hopefully I explained myself well enough that y'all like, what, he may be on to something. So I'm definitely gonna have to write a paper on this and bring forth this argument, and displaying the method of the like. But that's what it seems like is what's really going on here. And so You know, again, if there's no questions or comments, I will take this opportunity to tell you, one, I love you all, but two, so I got the coolest commercial breaks. Indeed. But y'all tell me what you think in the comments, once the video is done, and we will keep the conversation going. I have an upcoming interview with a scholar who has written a grammar. I don't know if it's a grammar, but it's a book on learning the Nubian, or one of the major Nubian languages, Nobin. And we are scheduled to interview on the 18th, Sunday the 18th. So that'll be coming up. And so we're going to start writing, learning how to read and write the Nubian languages, right? So we can expand our palette and really get into Nubian history and culture. And we're going to talk about the moving of the Nubian people as a result of the dam that was built in Egypt and Sudan. What it means in terms of the artifacts that are still underwater, and of course the culture and the people having to move to various different places. Some of them have moved and settled in Egypt, and they are being marginalized in Egypt to this date. I've been in the village a number of times, and I've been blessed to have conversations with a few. So we're going to have a good brother come speak with us, on that date. So more than likely it'll be in the Patreon first, and then later we will publish it. So be on the lookout. I'll have a flyer and the like for that. So until next time, peace.
Tokyo wanna dose that. What's up? Feeling like I dropped the draw for and caught Uno. Came to kick the door where the game man judo. Pin game low, that's why they give me kudos. Inspired by the 3-0. 595, check it for pack flight. Hit the turnpike, slide to a baseline. Gotta sound like I just hit the 8-5. Oh, I'm so ready, by enemies necessary. We gon' be legendary, hold up. About to grow the payrolls. If you see the vision and you're with it, you should say so. Cause we about building, elevating the millions.
This program was created with the love and support of all our Patreon members and subscribers. If you are not a member yet and would like to see more content like this, consider becoming a member today. The link is in the description of this video. Your support is greatly appreciated.